to the Extended Cut. I'm your host, Mark Vicioso, and beside me, as always, is Thomas Coburn. Thomas, how are you today? Have you been watching any movies lately, man?
Mark, I'm good, but I can't tell them what I've been watching. It's what the show is for. I mean, like, enough of the small talk. Listen, let's just jump in and tell the people what's going on in today's show. So on the episode today, we're going to be taking a closer look at the genre of sports films and look at what makes either a good sports film or a bad sports film. From new releases and hidden gems to modern classics, and looking through the best decades for the sport movie genre. We are here to touch on all of it. And at the end, we have a very special guest that you don't want to miss.
Well, Thomas, let's just get right into it. And we're going to start with new releases. And we tend to forget that throughout the pandemic, Hollywood still has had some movies released in that time period. But in my honest opinion, some of these movies have been lackluster. Does Space Jam 2 ring a bell? Take a look.
Walk the street, how your last name rhythm and you're still off beat. From beginning to the end, I'm here for all the smoke. Your squad ain't all star, your squad is all jokes. End this with one bar, most famous of all quotes. This battle is now over, that's all, folks.
LeBron versus MJ may be a good basketball game, but acting, I'm not going to lie, that's a whole different ball game, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I mean, Mark, I'll be completely honest. I wasn't even really a huge fan of the first Space Jam. I know a lot of people love that, but to me, this was just horrific. I mean, LeBron James, you know, we can have a GOAT discussion about basketball, but when it comes to acting, I think it's Michael Jordan's title.
I think it's his to lose. But also in March of 2020, we were treated to another great acting performance from Boston-owned Ben Affleck as a drunk basketball coach in The Way Back. Watch this.
It's already set, Jack. Dad, you don't make that hard at the end of the game. At the end of the game. Set, Jack. He was set. Oh, that's a call. You're a maker. You know what? Hey, yes, you are. You don't decide the game. Hey, the players decide the game.
Now, I've been playing sports for most of my life, and I can tell you a coach has never done that.
I mean, I know he's supposed to be playing a drunk basketball coach, but maybe, was he drunk when he decided to make this movie? It's just, he doesn't even look like a coach out there. It's so forced, it's so over the top. It's like, you know, I've played sports my whole life. Coaches don't act like that. I know you've played it. They don't do that.
They don't.
It just never happens. Enough talk, though, Mark, about like these, you know, we're making the fans like sad. We're talking about bad movies. Why don't we look at some really good new sports films that have come out? First up, you know, Ford vs. Ferrari, a film about Carroll Shelby, an automotive designer, and Ken Miles, a race car driver, and the rivalry against Ferrari, featuring electric race scenes like this one.
Battle for the lead is being raised as the number 98 Ford makes an incredible late surge.
What's happening? He's moving up.
Entering the front triangle, Ken Miles' desperate bid for the win may prove to be
Now, Mark, I'm no F1, you know, super fan or anything like that. I'm not into racing like that, but I gotta say, when I saw this movie, I absolutely loved it. I know that you're into the racing, you're into that culture, so, you know, from your perspective, was this movie done right?
Well, what I think it got the most right out of anything was the racing scenes. What Ken Miles is doing and what Carroll Shelby and they did together was transformative for F1 in general, and you wouldn't have these races that you have today, like Le Mans 66, a great scene in the movie, the score, exhilarating stuff that you can only imagine back then that could be put on film and put accurately onto film. So I think that only increased this movie, and it was nominated for Academy Awards for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, another terrific part about this movie, I'm not really a huge fan of Matt Damon. I thought he was fantastic in this. But another terrific recent sports film was I, Tonya, a movie about a prolific figure skater who happened to be the first American to land the triple axel. The movie captivated audiences, in large parts to scenes like this one. Have a look.
And the question is whether 3 moves into the program she will do a triple axel. First, a triple Lutz. Nicely done.
And now we will find out whether she will be the first American to attempt and complete a triple axel jump. We will know that here, whether she tries it or not.
Mark, I mean, we're not exactly figure skating experts by any means, but I gotta say, it was an unreal movie. Margot Robbie, terrific as usual. What did you like about the film?
Well, what Tanya really did amazing was just from the narrative structure of the film. You could see just from the beginning that they had Tanya Harding narrating, Margot Robbie, who plays her, narrating certain parts of the film, and that gave an insight into her own life and what's been going on and the struggles that she faced that made her the character that she was. And one of my favorite parts of the movie was Allison Janney. She delivered an amazing performance as her mom, and she won the Academy Award for that. And you could just see, just from the way that she acted in scenes at the diners, before the big skate scenes, it was all delivered perfectly, and I couldn't ask for something more.
Yeah, 100%. And the writing, I gotta say, throughout the whole movie was spot on. But Mark, seeing as we've been talking about recent releases, I think it might be time to focus on one of your favorite films. And, you know, one of the best movie releases of the last half decade, and it also happens to be a sports movie. I'm, of course, talking about Creed.
I've been fighting my whole life. It's not a choice for me.
You see this guy here staring back at you? That's your toughest opponent.
Who's next?
I believe that's true in the ring, and I think that's true in life.
What a boxer, what a movie. That is just so good, man. Every time I see that movie, I just can't help but get pumped up, man. And it delivers everything that you need just from a boxing standpoint, a reality standpoint, Rocky standpoint. It's what I needed to watch, and it's what I need to see. Like, let's take a look at this board right here.
Look at the pull up the stats of how much money this movie made.
That is crazy. It was released in 2015, had a budget of $35 million. Look at that, it made over $173 million at the box office. It was directed by Ryan Coogler, of course, also, and it was a return to form for the Rocky franchise, coming 9 years after Stallone's comeback in Rocky Balboa, and with Tessa Thompson, Michael B. Jordan, and Sly reprising his role. And looking at the lost son of Apollo, Creed, it really gave this film a chance to find its legacy, and as it says in the tagline, you have to carve your own legacy, and that's what this movie did, and I think it did it really well.
Well, Mark, what's your favorite? Why don't you show the audience your favorite scene? Why don't you?
Before we take a look at this, let's look at this scene that is amazing right here, and it's my favorite scene probably throughout the whole movie, and a cementing legacy of this modern classic.
Who your father? I'm stopping this one now.
Don't, okay, let me finish. I gotta prove it.
Prove what?
I'm not a mistake.
Look at me. I never got a chance to thank Apollo for helping me out after Mickey died. But it's nothing compared to what you've done. You taught me how to fight again, and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna fight this thing. But if I fight, I want you to fight too. I want you to go across this ring and knock that son of a down. Can you do it? Say it.
I'm gonna knock that son of a down.
I know you are. You know why? Because you're a Creed, and I love you, kid.
I liked this Creed movie. I thought it was certainly one of the best sports movies of recent memory. But Mark, I know you're the Rocky fanboy, you're the Creed fanboy. So do you think that this movie will kind of help or hurt the Rocky legacy long term?
Well, I think that your question's already been answered, Thomas. Well, you look at what Creed done, released in 2015, and there's already been sequels. There's been Creed 2, and there's been a clamoring for people to watch a good boxing movie, and nothing better than having Rocky being looked at to a modern audience. A lot of modern audiences have only watched Rocky maybe on Netflix, maybe on another streaming service, and now you get to see Creed, you get to see Apollo Creed's son. Who would have thought maybe in the 80s that this would ever happen, or Rocky would still be a thing? And just to see where it took the franchise and what it did for movies in general, I love this, man.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's important. If it's going to spark another generation, they got to see the movie in the theater. And that's Creed gave the younger generation a chance to do that. But Mark, after the last Rocky movie, Sylvester Stallone said he'd never make another Rocky movie again. Despite that, Ryan Coogler convinced him to return. But in the end, how important do you think it actually was for Stallone to be in the movie?
Well, Thomas, you said it yourself. The movie's Rocky. How are you going to have Rocky without Rocky? Stallone, this guy, he came from nothing. He wrote this film in 1975 in his own apartment. And he made, with just $1 million budget, he made it win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And what he delivers in this movie, what he gives to the younger people, the director, Ryan Coogler, you can just see that he motivates this film. And he is, within this film, the heartbeat of it. He gets cancer throughout the movie. They have to deal with that. It's about him and Michael B. Jordan just coming together and delivering just one of the best relationships between a boxer and a coach that you could ask for. And he's just my mentor and obviously my favorite guy.
100%. I mean, moving from, let's go to the lead role, though. Michael B. Jordan had big shoes to fill playing Apollo Creed's son. So how do you think he fared? And maybe was there a different actor who could have done a better job?
Michael B. Jordan. We're talking about Killmonger, Black Panther. This guy does it all. And from even his earlier work during Fruitvale Station with his work with Ryan Coogler, he was even in episodes of The Wire. You could see that this guy, he was really going to be something. And to sort of critique and say, oh, this guy could have done this role better, this guy could have done that, you're sort of depreciating what he did for the role. And I think even his relationship with Tessa Thompson throughout the film, it really enhanced and made people care. I know I watched this movie with my mom, and she was crying in certain scenes because Michael B. Jordan was just so realistic, and the emotions that he puts on his face, everything that he does, I just love the guy too, man. Him and Stallone, like, that's a great combo, and I think that can work for many years to come. It's unfortunate that Stallone may not be in Creed 3, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I got to be honest, I didn't really know of Michael B. Jordan before the first Creed, but certainly now he's one of the biggest superstars in the whole world. But, stick with us, because after the break, we'll be taking a look at some of the greatest sports movies from the 80s and 90s. I can't give away any hints right now. You're just going to have to stick around, get some popcorn, get ready. When we come back from commercial, we'll have all the stuff you need to know about the 80s and 90s.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Lately, me and Thomas, we've had the great pleasure of looking at a plethora of films from each decade in preparation for this episode. And we have our own thoughts on which movies are the best, but we thought about highlighting the best sports movies from each decade. And obviously you look at the 60s and 70s, considered to be the golden age for films in general. Those are great, but the real meat came in the 80s and the 90s. And we had you guys vote on Twitter on different movie matchups to determine which decade would reign supreme. So let's take a look.
All right, Mark, game one, golf theme. We got Caddyshack versus Happy Gilmore. I'm the 80s guy all the way. Caddyshack, just one of the funniest movies of all time, featuring one of the funniest actors and comedians of all time, Rodney Dangerfield. Naturally funny. The whole cast kills it the whole movie. You're laughing the whole way through. You just can't help it. Happy Gilmore, I don't know if it
Happy
stands.
Gilmore? We're talking about Caddyshack. I thought that's your favorite movie.
Yeah, but Caddyshack's great, but Happy Gilmore's okay.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore, in my opinion, it's prime Adam Sandler. You get the jokes, you got Chubbs, you got Bob Barker, you got all the recipes for making a great comedy film, and that's what they deliver here. Happy Gilmore, come on, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, Adam Sandler, I love him.
All right, well, listen, why don't we just let the fans vote? We'll see the results here of game one. Look at that. Mark, I'm right. Caddyshack all the way.
Hey, you can't win them all. That's it. Well, moving on to game two, we're going to go take a look at baseball. We got Field of Dreams, and we got A League of Their Own. And Thomas, I don't care what you said about the last one. A League of Their Own, that is definitely one of the best baseball movies of all time. Tom Hanks, Madonna, There's no crying in baseball. Where else can you get iconic lines like that?
I mean, listen, I gotta say, it's a great film, but Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, the MLB made a stadium because of the movie. Costner loves baseball. I love it. It's just a classic.
Well, it's not up to what you have to say. It's about what the audience has to say. So let's take a look and... Would you look at that?
That's an embarrassing margin to lose by.
82 to 18, wow.
Yeah. I mean, enough. I got to move on to Game 3. I don't even want to look at that screen anymore. Game 3, we got Kingpin in the 90s versus 80s, The Color of Money. Now, to me, Tom Cruise, The Color of Money, 80s, Pool. Some people might say Pool's not a sports movie, but listen, it's a sport. It's a sports movie. Tom Cruise kills it. One of my favorite actors, personally. Maybe I have a soft spot for it, but The Color of Money, just terrific.
Yeah, and I really like The Color of Money, and it's a great film to watch maybe on a Saturday, a Sunday, you know, you're chilling. But Kingpin, it really emphasized on the bowling, directed by Bobby and Peter Farley, and focusing on two people trying to win out the bowling in their league and try and generate money. Bill Murray, Woody Harrelson, great chemistry, and you have that comedic timing already built in. So the script, it can be whatever it is, but these guys are going to improv all the time. Come on, Thomas.
I mean, we could argue all day, but let's see what the fans have to say. Game 3, who does it go to? Color of Money, 52 to 48, pretty close. I'm up 2-1 though, Mark.
I know. Well, looks like we got to try and tie this baby up. We got Game 4. He got Game versus Hoosiers, a little basketball central right here, and he got Game. I'm sorry. Hoosiers is a great, Indiana Hoosiers, a great story to tell, but he got Game. Jesus Shuttlesworth, Denzel Washington, Spike Lee directing. This is something, as somebody that's played basketball in the past, as I've mentioned before, it really got that grittiness. It got that father-son relationship of wanting to make it to the NBA. And I think that He Got Game really delivered and should easily win this matchup.
I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit of an underdog here, but Hoosiers, high school story, you can't help but love it. Some serious issues like alcoholism are covered, but overall, it's a feel-good story. Give me Hoosiers all day.
Well, it's not about what it. Here we go.
And we go to a Game 5, Mark, just for all the marbles. It's almost like we planned this. So for Game 5, we got 80s, Raging Bull, my favorite of all time, versus 90s, Rudy, very respectable. Raging Bull, classic, directed by Martin Scorsese, Jake LaMotta, just all about his boxing journey. Pesci, De Niro, classic combo, as good as ever in this movie, as good as you'll ever see him. To me, one of the best films of all time, period.
Yeah, and I really appreciate Raging Bull and what it did for the sport of boxing, as well as what it did for Scorsese's career. Only had an up trajectory after that. Goodfellas, Aviator, you name it, he had it. But Rudy, that is just the 90s. Released in 1992, starring Sean Astin, who's of Lord of the Rings fame. And it's about him just coming into Notre Dame and trying to make a name for himself, cement it. It's a motivational film. And I'm a guy that loves to get motivated, and that movie, that does it for me, man. And I love Rudy, and I think this is going to win.
All right, Mark, I'm nervous to see the results, but throw them up there. Let's see what the fans voted. Here we go. For all the marbles, who wins? 51 to 49. Okay, I mean, I can stomach that. Classy in defeat as always I am, Mark. You know me. But listen, as much as it pains me to see that you guys voted for the 90s, I think the audience is wrong. But, you know, we got to move on. Now, let's head back to the home theater and look at some of the worst sports movie sequels of all time. Welcome back to the home theater. Earlier we mentioned a horrific sequel in Space Jam 2. So now let's take a look at some more. First up, we got Caddyshack 2. We were just talking about Caddyshack earlier, one of my favorites. Way to ruin it with Caddyshack 2. No Rodney Dangerfield, just terrible. I mean, take a look at this clip. You see how bad it is for yourself.
Chandler Young?
Yes?
Our mutual friend told me to meet you here. Captain Tom Everett, United States Marine Corps, Item 5-8, Company A, retired.
Expecting someone with some sort of vehicle, but not this.
Yeah. Well, think about it. Your objective is to surveil a target operating in the construction business. What could be better suited for this type of covert recon than a barf wagon?
That's comedy, Coburn. That's comedy.
Comedy's a tragedy, I guess that's what they say. Mark, You know, Caddyshack 2, terrible. You want to know what's even worse?
Tell me.
Bad News Bears go to Japan. You take a classic like Bad News Bears and you just say, okay, we'll put Japan on it. Send the baseball players to Japan. Way to ruin a classic. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's one of the worst.
Yeah, I don't think I've had the privilege of watching this classic, but what I can tell you is whenever you go to X country, you can never expect the best. And obviously, I only expected the worst there. But you think Bad News Bears go to Japan's bad Caddyshack 2. I don't think you've had the privilege of watching the great Slapshot 2. Now, obviously, in the first Slapshot, we had a gritty 70s look at hockey and real close-ups, gritty dialogue. But in Slapshot 2, we're welcome to the fact of Gary Busey and Stephen Baldwin. Great people in their own right, but to lead a movie like Slapshot, that wasn't the right decision.
Ruined hockey for me.
Yeah, ruined it.
My favorite
Ruined
sport got ruined in that movie.
No, ruined it. But you know what else ruined something? The next Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi and Hilary Swank may be good and maybe like a Halloween like parody, but in a real film, you get scenes like this.
Ned here could have beat McGowan, but his arm's behind his back.
Put it on.
Julie, what are you kidding me?
Let me fight him.
No. You want to fight me?
Julissa, no fight me. Please.
Colonel, she wants to fight me.
Mr. Miyagi, if I'm ever gonna respect myself, I have to do this.
No. Mr. Miyagi, please tell her she's gonna get hurt.
Eddie.
Mr. Miyagi and Hilary Swank should never be said in the same sentence. I mean, maybe you can doubt it, you can be optimistic, and then you see it on screen, and it's one of the worst things you've ever seen of all time.
100%, and I think Cobra Kai had maybe got some respectability back to the franchise. But after the break and leading up into our last segment here, we're going to be taking a look at our special guest who we've been teasing throughout the show, and I'm excited to see as well. We're going to be looking at some upcoming releases, looking at what you have to see in the theaters. Stay tuned.
As we mentioned earlier, we promised there would be a special guest. Earlier this week, our own Adam Bazana had a chance to sit down with the notorious Conor McGregor to discuss his possible upcoming biopic. Here it is.
Hello and welcome to the Extended Cut on Set segment. My name is Adam Bazana, and I am joined today by UFC double champion Conor McGregor. How are you today, Conor?
You know, I'm doing absolutely wonderful, my friend. Just got back from Rome, Italy. Absolutely bouncing out there, man.
That sounds wonderful. Conor, your biopic is coming out, and there's been speculation on who will play you in the film. Out of all the actors there are, who do you think could play you the best?
That's a tough question. I say it's between my mate Charlie Hunnam or even Tom Hardy. You can't have some pleb playing a role at a notorious double champion Conor McGregor. You got to have someone with the beard, the attitude, the money, and a style. Those two right now, absolute top actors. Sons of Anarchy, Peaky Blinders. The resume says it all.
Those are some great choices, Conor. Well, that's it for us. Thank you for watching. Now back to you, Mark.
I love me some McGregor. I love me some UFC. And to hear a biopic's coming, who would have thought, man?
I'll be the first ones to buy tickets to this movie. I can't wait. Conor McGregor's such a character. I mean, he mentioned who could play him. What do you think, Mark? What do you think of his What do you think of his suggestions?
Well, I thought actually Charlie Hunnam was actually a pretty good choice considering he's Irish and he has sort of like that background of acting, and I think he could really deliver a solid role and at the weight he's at. Tom Hardy, I don't know. If I had to really pick one though, maybe a wild card here, Paddy the Baddy. How about that guy? He's coming out. He's doing stuff. He hasn't acted before, but the guy looks like he's a jack of all trades. He could probably do it no problem.
We talk about who could play Conor McGregor, but who would be better to play Conor McGregor than Conor McGregor himself? If there's any athlete who could act in their own biopic, 100%, it's going to be the Notorious one.
Well, I'll definitely be looking forward to that one when it comes out in theaters. But also, what may be coming out in theaters are these films coming up. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about old stuff, bad sequels, new releases and stuff like that. But what's upcoming and what's coming next? Here, we'll start off with this. King Richard, Serena Williams and Venus Williams, and their track to fame, and it focuses on their father, Richard Williams, played by Will Smith. And I think this one, it has maybe Academy Awards written on it.
I think it's got potential. You know, who doesn't love Will Smith, right? Everybody is the greatest. But in all seriousness, you know, Serena and Venus, two of the greatest tennis players of our generation. I don't know a ton about their story, to be completely honest with you, so I'll be excited. I've only ever watched them on the court, so I'll be excited to see kind of the behind the scenes, what it took to create two of just the most legendary women's tennis players of all time. I can't wait.
Yeah, well, speaking of legendary, also coming up in late 2022, we have a George Foreman biopic coming out. We have yet to really release the cast and everything, but hearing about that and hearing about great sports movies like Ali, we talked about Creed earlier, you can't really tell the story of boxing without such a heavyweight like George Foreman. The guy was great.
Mark, listen, I love a good boxing film. We've talked about a ton so far, but George Foreman biopic, they better talk about The Grill. Arguably more legendary than even his legendary boxing career. Set aside 20 minutes to talk about The Grill, please. It'll be the greatest 5-star movie of all time.
Yeah, maybe a post-credit scene. You don't know what the director is. Maybe it's going to tie into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You never know. But last one on this list, we have one that we've alluded to earlier, Creed 3, the end of this magnificent trilogy. Creed 2 came out in 2018. This one's going to be starring and being directed by Michael B. Jordan. So something to look forward to there. I'm excited for this one, aren't you, Coburn?
I'd say I'm nervous. There's a couple of things that I'm unsure about. I liked the first one. Second one was decent, but is Sylvester Stallone going to be in it? To me, he's got to be in it, or else it's a waste of my time. And also, Michael B. Jordan directing, who knows how that's going to pan out? We got to just wait and see. I'll go see it. Who am I kidding? I'll be in the theaters, probably opening night to watch it, but I have some reservations, I have to say.
And that's fair to say. That's fair to say. But what do we got coming up next week, Coburn?
Okay, Mark, next week, just a terrific show. Throw up the promo board for next week's show. The fans are going to come back for sure. We got crime dramas of the 1970s. I mean, look at just those 4 movies on the screen you see right there. 4 of the most legendary movies of all time. Mark, what are your quick thoughts on one of those?
Well, yeah, the one that really stands out to me right there is Godfather. The Godfather, released in 1972, Francis Ford Coppola. That is probably the best mob movie of all time, and based off a book, you can't go wrong when you're talking about Vito Corleone, Don Corleone, the story. It's everything that you need in a family tale, and I just love it. Christmas time especially, that's when I love to watch it.
Mark, you mentioned mob movies. That might have to be a future episode as well. There's some classics in there. You know, we saw in those posters Al Pacino. I got to mention this quickly at the end. Al Pacino, Any Given Sunday, personally one of my favorite sports films of all time. We couldn't leave the air.
Unfortunate we didn't get to talk about that.
Maybe we do a part 2 of the episode, but I had to sneak it in there just so the fans knew. But listen, that's going to wrap up our show today. We hope all of you enjoyed the episode. Join us next week, once again, Crime 1970s. Take it easy. Have a great week.